In just 14 days, Uganda's political fate will be decided through a popular ballot. The judge is Justice Simon Byabakama, and the Electoral Commission and the players are the 17.6 million registered voters. The campaign period has been littered with violence, the high-handedness of the security agencies, and suspension of campaigns in some areas under the gaze of the surge in the COVID-19 pandemic. With some political players already citing political foul play, can the Commission deliver a free and fair and credible election? On the spot tonight, we host Justice Simon Byabakama, the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission of Uganda. My Lord Justice Simon Byabakama, thank you so much for having honored our invitation. You are on the spot, and frankly, Uganda's spotlight is on you, because in 14 days, you're supposed to deliver an election that we expect to be fair, to be free, and to be credible. But Justice Byabakama, are you ready? Is your commission ready? Is Uganda ready? It's only 14 days to go.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and good evening, viewers. It's a very great honor and privilege for me to be the last person on the last 2020 hotspot program. So I'm very honored. Well, first of all, the Commission is ready, and I'd like to assure Ugandans that the Commission is on top of what we set out to do in the roadmap, which we launched in 2018. We have carried out a series of activities, which I would not like to go into because of lack of sufficient time. But I think you recall that on Saturday, 26th of December of this year, we invited a group of journalists together with other stakeholders at our warehouses in Kyambogo to witness the packing of ballot papers into the ballot boxes for eventual dispatch to the various parts of the country for the first round of elections. Now, this packing process has been ongoing for the last 1 month or so, with a number, with a series, with so many what we call generic materials being first placed in the ballot box, and the last item be placed in the ballot boxes, in the boxes is the ballot papers. So we are ready. I want to assure the people of Uganda we are ready, and in spite of the challenges that we have experienced here and there as a country, but come 14th of January, which is, and January is about less than 2 hours from now on, we shall be ready to enable or to put in place the process which will allow Ugandans leave their homes, go and cast their votes at their respective polling stations. We are ready.
The ballot papers for the presidential elections are in Uganda. All
Yes.
of them as you want them?
Yes, they are already here. They are already here, and remember that the first round of general elections is that one involving presidential and parliamentary candidates. And all those ballot papers are now in the country.
Including the parliamentary candidates?
Yeah, even including the parliamentary candidates. They're now in the country. And as I said, on 26th, we started the process of placing these ballot papers in each of the respective ballot boxes. Remember,
Ballot boxes or boxes?
Boxes. Okay, let's call them boxes, because ballot boxes are the transparent ones. But the black boxes are what we use to transport these materials from the headquarters, from the warehouses, to the district, to the sub-county, and up to the polling stations.
To have a free and fair election, Justice Byabakama, you have to ensure that you don't have any technical glitches. You need a clean voters register loaded on this BBVS kit, because they'll be used for identification purposes. I wonder how far you've gone in loading this register on the kits.
Yes, as I said, you know, each thing leads to another. And we remember there were questions as to how and when we shall be able to procure that system, which we did from a company outside the country. And that company has already set up shop in this country where they are training our people on how to use that system. The process of uploading the data onto that system has already started. we shall be ready come polling day.
No, you're talking about a very important process of having an entire voters register on a BVVS kit, and you're saying it is ongoing, and that one has not, you're not sure whether it's going to be completed tomorrow or the other day, and yet you have no time.
No. I just want to assure you, Patrick, that come polling day, everything will be ready. You see, mind you that each of these ballot boxes, not ballot boxes, sorry, each of these boxes, each of these black boxes, yes, each of these kits has a copy of the register per polling for that polling station. So, and that copy is the hard copy, which is a color photo register. Now,
so are you going to use the manual register, or you're going to use the kit, which is the technological one? What is going to happen?
Now, the kit, that biometric voter verification kit, is for purposes of identifying Patrick Kamara. When he comes or when he goes to his polling station, they have to identify whether indeed, one, you are a registered voter, and that this is your polling station where you're supposed to vote from.
By your fingerprint.
By your fingerprint. Then, the critical document that identifies you as indeed, which gives you the full particulars, your photograph, your particulars, and so on and so forth, is the register. And this register is a hard copy, which is in the hands of the presiding officer at
every polling station.
station.
So, but at this point, can you say that the physical register that somebody will be having at the polling station is actually the same thing that is going to be on the kit?
Oh, yes. Let me tell you.
Has that already been collaborated as we speak now?
Yes. Now, for instance, let me give you one illustration. You are a registered voter. Yes. Fine. You are a registered voter in your home village where you are born.
In Ngezi, for example.
In Ngezi, for example, in Chenjojo district, all right? But now, on 14th, you come you go to a polling station near your current residence. I don't know where you stay now in Kampala. Now, if you go to that polling station, although you appear on the National Voters Register, now when you go to that polling station here in Kampala, and you try to get identified as a voter
in that area,
this system will say, no, you are not a voter at this polling station.
Okay.
And secondly, your photograph and your particulars will not be appearing on the manual register of that polling station.
I understand that the voters register was physically taken to the Netherlands, where the company that you're dealing with is, in what I've gathered, to physically put this thing, to be copied onto on the kit. Is that so?
No, that's not true. What we did was I think we had the data the register for the national vote, the data for the National Voters Register availed to the company which is supposed to actualize, which is supposed to operationalize the system, so that this data is captured for purposes of them enabling them to put the system in a process. I don't want to go into the technical niceties because I'm not a very IT person.
Okay, but have you kept all the stakeholders in the loop about every technical step and stage that you take? Because when you brought in the ballot papers or when you're printing, they are there to verify and ascertain what you're doing. How about at this level? Because it's also very crucial.
Yes, now at the appropriate time, and we're going to inform the stakeholders, we are going to roll out this system. We are going to ask the stakeholders, including the candidates, to appoint or to avail us their agents, okay, who are going to be trained, who are going to be taken through how this system operates, so that on polling day, each and every person is acquainted with what is going to take place with this system in place. So we are going to keep everybody informed.
Justice Biabakama, you're talking about you're going to train them. You're also still training your own people, but you don't have the latitude of time.
No, but why? Who says we don't have the latitude of time? We have we have about 14 days to polling day. You get me? And you see...
So you have 14 days to polling day, but some people who need to be trained have not been trained. You are still even training your own staff.
Yes.
Do you really say, you are telling Uganda the remaining time is enough for them to go
we train, for instance, when we are carrying out training for our people, we also encourage the stakeholders the political parties, the candidates, also to avail their people for training. So it will carry out a joint training so that people get to know what is happening, and this knowledge should be shared by all stakeholders. So we are going to do that. We don't see any problem with that.
You need an army of electoral officials. I'm told about 60,000. That's a big force, almost.
That's
like
more than 60,000.
Okay, you're almost talking about the Uganda police force. And have these really been brought to speed in terms of, you know, of technical training? I know you have recruited them, but have you recruited all that you need?
As we talk now, today, from yesterday, at Hotel Africana, we are training our returning officers and our IT personnel, those who are going to be managing the IT systems at the district tally centers. That training ended today. Now these ones in turn are going to train other people, like the polling officials, on how these systems are going to operate. And at the same time, we are going to encourage the stakeholders, the candidates, the political parties, also to send their representatives, their agents, to take part in the training that is going to be conducted for the people who will be at the polling stations.
Don't you need some kind of a dry run before the actual thing? Because so that maybe you have a polling station of sorts in Karamoja, you have another one in Kisoro, you have another one in Kalangala, and you have another one in Kiambogo, which, and then you see whether this thing is running like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that dry run is going to be undertaken at the National Tally Center, which we have already identified, and that's going to be Kiambogo Cricket Grounds again, where we carried out the presidential nomination process. Now,
so the National Tally Center is Kiambogo Cricket Ground.
Absolutely, Kiambogo Cricket Ground. Now, our IT people are going to set up the necessary equipment and carry out what you call the dry run across with all other parts of the country to see whether the systems are well set and whether the transmission process is smooth and devoid of any glitches.
You know, in the last election in 2016, I remember the European Union voiced their concern, especially on how the transmission of results were being done. And from some places, Electoral Commission officials had to improvise because they didn't have everything that they needed. I wonder whether this time around, the mistakes that were made in 2016 are going to be corrected in 2021.
Yeah, you see, with every electoral process, you pick lessons from the previous exercise. And we picked lessons from what happened in 2016, and we have put in place measures to ensure that the mistakes are avoided. Remember now, one major improvement, that every tally center is going to have a screen where the results will be relayed from that particular district or electoral area. So then from there, these results will be relayed to the National Tally Center. So I do not, of course, you know, but you know, with the technology, with any piece of machine, whereas you think that everything is in tip-top condition, there might be exigencies, but we are prepared for any exigencies.
Will there be instances when you have to rely on manual voter register alone and not the kit to identify voters, and what would cause something like that?
Yeah, Patrick, for instance, let me just give you one illustration. There are some people who are amputees. They don't have hands. You get me? Or if they have hands, maybe they don't have fingers, something like that. Now, that person cannot therefore be intrinsically identified using the BBVS system. You get me? Now, because he or she cannot place his or thumbprint on the system. But that's why you keep emphasizing that the most critical record in an election at a polling station is the National Voters Register. Because at least even if that person does not have fingers and so on, but he or she has a face and particulars, which will be clearly registered in the register. So even if a person does not have fingerprints, and there are some, by the way, I'm told, who, even though they have the fingers, but the fingerprints, for some reason or another, the kit cannot pick their fingerprints. I'm told that is common in most cases for people who engage in a lot of hard manual labor. Every time they're handling brush objects which maybe rub off their fingerprints, they fade and so on and so forth. So in our training of our polling officials, we are emphasizing the fact that, look, The critical thing is this person on the National Voters Register? Assuming that the fingerprints from reason or another cannot be picked by this kit, by this system, do not turn away that person on account of not being able or not being picked or identified using the fingerprints.
Okay, we have quite a big number of the constituencies, and now we're going to have almost 500 members of parliament. You know, the possibility that you may have a candidate X somewhere in Rukunjiri, yet he should be somewhere in Kalangala, can really happen.
In what instance? A candidate who is contesting in Rukunjiri?
Yeah, I'm saying because you're dealing with so many people.
Yeah.
Well, it will be more evident, especially when you reach the councillors, because you're dealing with so many people.
Yes.
And you know, you can find that for a councillor who should be in Chawente, he's somewhere in Bushenyi, and something like that.
No.
How do you ensure that doesn't happen?
You see, that's why
the ballot boxes of Bushenyi are not in Bukedia.
Yes, that's why, Patrick, if you had time, you'd go to the parking center at the warehouses or the stores, and you see how elaborately these young men and women who do that work go through the process of ensuring that there is no mix-up of the ballot papers and the other effects. It's a very elaborate process. These boxes or kits are laid out for the entire length of the warehouse, and each item that is placed in that kit is checklisted to make sure that it goes in there.
It's checked and double-checked.
Checked and double-checked. And each of those kits is well marked. This polling station in this district, constituency, sub-county,
and these are the
parish polling station, and these are the effects. Each of those items, so that you minimize on such errors. Because you see, I want you to imagine, if the only time you can discover that there was an error in the parking process is when that kit is opened. And when is it opened? On the day of polling at the polling station. And by that time, therefore, if materials that were meant for a polling station in your Kienjojo district, in a polling station in Kienjojo district, find themselves in a park somewhere in Karamoja, you can see the trouble. So that's why we take double efforts to make sure that such commissions or omissions are avoided whenever possible.
Okay. Well, coronavirus seems to be everywhere, my lord. The fact that the virus is now everywhere in the country, for you to be able to say you're going to suspend campaigns in Kampala and Wakiso and other areas, which is opposition stronghold, considering the previous voting patterns, my lord, is going to be believed that perhaps is something that is a partisan in thinking.
I do not know for us in our analysis, in our planning and execution of processes, we do not look at which is opposition stronghold, which is pro-government ruling party stronghold, and so on and so forth.
And that's why I added basing on the previous voting patterns, sir.
Yeah, I do not know. But one thing I know, and I want to assure the people, that we took that decision basing on the advice and the urgent advice of the Minister of Health experts, that looking at the trajectory of the spike in infections, COVID-19, there was a need for the Electoral Commission to do something about the activities that were being undertaken in these areas. It had nothing to do with this area is favorable to this group or disfavorable to this group. No, that's not true. That's not correct.
So was that your idea or the idea of the Minister of Health? Whose idea was this that we should suspend in Kampala, Wakiso and the areas surrounding?
No, it was the decision of the Commission. It was the decision of the Commission. But you see, as I have been telling we have been telling the country all along, from the time COVID set into the country, and we went into a lockdown, and the electoral activities were suspended or put on hold. And when we revised the roadmap and scaled down, and we banned mass rallies and so on. The decisions we reached were taken after consultations with the experts involved in fighting the pandemic. And as I told this country on more than one occasion, we looked at three options. One, do we go for a conventional election? Because elections, we had to hold them in accordance with the dictates of Article 61. Do we go for a fully conventional traditional election where everything is manually done? Or do we go for a fully scientific election where everything is IT based and so on? Or do we go for a what we call a hybrid process? And I think we settled for the latter. Now, in arriving at such a decision, we took into account the advice and the guidance that were given by means of health. So similarly, when we took this recent decision, we were again in consultations with means of health and were guided by means of health that look, considering what is taking place now, if this kind of thing continues to play out in these areas, then we are heading for trouble. So I want to inform the people of Uganda that decision is purely a decision of the Commission. But probably, let me put a rider. I wouldn't like to get dragged into discussing the pros and the cons of that decision, since the matter is now before the courts of law, and we are waiting.
Okay.
I think you're aware that the court hearing took place today. We are waiting the decision of the court and see what next. So,
yeah, but my lord, you know that there are areas that are known to have high spikes of COVID-19, Gulu and Amuru, and are not included among the areas where campaigns can be started.
Then that question should be put to the Minister of Health, because I'm telling you that we took a decision basing on the data and the information given to us by Minister of Health and the guidance given to us by Minister of Health. Actually, they sounded a very big alarm. Let me tell you, Patrick. The Minister of Health experts were very alarmed. On the 11th of December, they wrote to me a missive about the conduct of some political actors vis-a-vis the spike in COVID-19 infections. And they said the Commission had to do something to avert the country going to disastrous levels of the transmission of the pandemic. Now, they did not only stop at that. On the 23rd of December, I think there were about 4 or 5 experts who paid us a visit, and we held a meeting with them. I think it was about 1.5 or 2 hours meeting, and we discussed all the factors pertaining to the pandemic and the manner in which it has overstretched the health facilities of the country, and therefore the need for the Electoral Commission to re-examine how some of these processes were being undertaken, which had a high-risk potential process of spreading the virus.
Okay, but again, my lord, you needed to talk to the people who are writing to you to also put into consideration that there are places that are highly crowded, including Kampala. You just have to go to downtown and go to Kikubo and other areas. You find the people gathered from all walks of life, from all corners of Uganda, in bigger numbers than even a campaign rally could bring.
Well, unfortunately, Patrick, we do not manage the processes of Kikubo. For us, what we manage are electoral activities that are laid out in the roadmap, and activities for which we have issued guidelines on how people should conduct themselves and go about them.
Justice
now,
Simon,
for the other processes like funerals, for example, people taking part in funerals, people are taking part in weddings. Is the Electoral Commission, does it have the powers, the mandate to say, can we also look at how people are conducting these weddings and these funerals with vis-a-vis the transmission of the virus? No. For us, we are focusing on the processes that are under our mandate, that are under our execution. And for as long as Minister of Health experts came up and pointed to this process as one of the high-risk super spread areas, we said no. We cannot let the lives of the people of Uganda be put at risk simply because people are politicking.
So now, this biometric kit that everybody is supposed to be putting in their fingerprint so that they can be identified, I'm wondering whether that won't turn out to become a COVID dispenser of sorts.
Yes, that's why we have said, Patrick and dear viewers, that the Electoral Commission is putting in place measures at every polling station of observance of the SOPs. We are going to make sure we have sanitizers. And I would like to commend World Health Organization, which has made a noble contribution in that regard to the Electoral Commission. They have given us tens of thousands, I think, of sanitizers and so on to be used on polling stations. So we shall make sure that these, first of all, any voter accessing the polling station is sanitized. Any voter approaching the polling station has a mask on. Then we observe social distancing. Now, these common tools that they will be touching, the BBVS machine, the pens, the basins and so on, we make sure those things are constantly sanitized so that we do not expose the lives of our people to the virus.
Justice Simon Byabakama, the chairman of the Electoral Commission, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. The spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission, and we're discussing the readiness of the Electoral Commission in handling the election on January 14th, 2021. And, you know, after everybody has voted, people have a tendency, and I think it is even their right, to stay around, sometimes guard their vote. Are you going to allow people to stay at the polling station after casting their vote?
Thank you, Patrick. That matter has been raised by some candidates who are urging their supporters or voters to remain at polling stations after casting their votes. It would not be appropriate for voters a voter after casting his or her vote to remain at a polling station. Look at the practical aspects of it. One, you have a polling station, probably some of the polling stations in areas like Kampala might be the size of this studio. You get me? Mm-hmm. For obvious reasons, lack of adequate space. And most of the polling stations in Kampala have a minimum maybe between 700 and 900 voters, even 1,000 voters. Now, if 1,000 voters or 900 voters are to remain at the polling station, what does that mean? You are crowding out the polling station. You are not able to observe the SOPs, social distancing, and so on and so forth. Remember, polling station opens at 7 a.m., closes at 4 p.m., then after that, counting. Now, if you have this large number of voters, it is a panacea for anything to happen. Anything can happen in the process, because you cannot guarantee the good conduct of each of these people at the polling station. And thirdly, when a polling station is crowded out, it might be a challenge, or it might be difficult for some vulnerable voters, because we have what we call vulnerable voters. The elderly, the women, they may feel a bit intimidated when they see this crowd of people around the polling station and so on and so forth. And some of these
intimidated by their own people, because these are people whom you know. These are people in your own village.
But you know the conduct of some of our people, Patrick. For you are talking of a reasonable person of good conduct. But some of our people, inevitably, they are not of good conduct. And they may create a scene at a polling station. So that's why. And secondly, we have had people saying that we must deploy vote protectors or ballot protectors, whatever you want to call them. But that's not defined anywhere in the law. The only persons who are recognized and allowed at a polling station per candidate are the agents. And each candidate is entitled to 2 agents. If, for instance, now we already have, look at this scenario, Patrick. We have 11 presidential candidates, okay, at a polling station. Then you have so many in Kampala, for instance, I'm told, in some areas you have about 14 candidates in one constituency. And all those ballot papers at each polling station, okay? Then you have, for the woman member of parliament, directly elected member of parliament. Now, each of those candidates is entitled to 2 agents. Presidential candidates If each one of them raises 2 agents, those are already 22. Members of parliament, if you have 15, each one raises 2, those are already 30. Then to the directly elected woman member parliament, if they are 5, those are already 10. Already the polling stations are overcrowded. Then you have our polling officials. Then you have observers. Then you have vote protectors. For goodness sake, please.
I want to appeal. Journalists.
Yes, I want to appeal. Then you have the journalists. I want to appeal to the people, the voters. Once you have cast your vote, you have cast your vote at 7 a.m. Why should you keep around until 4 p.m.?
Because whereas it is my civic duty and constitutional responsibility to cast my vote, it gives me satisfaction to see, to be there when that vote is being counted.
Absolutely.
That is when you feel like,
yes,
okay, I have done my duty.
I agree with
yes,
you.
that's what they need.
Thank you, Patrick.
And once in 5 years, that's the very crucial need that they want it met.
Well put, Patrick. In that case, therefore, if you have cast your vote and enable for you to allow others who may come after you, okay, reasonable space to access the polling station without feeling any intimidation or anything, go away and do other things, then you can come back if you want towards 4 p.m.
All right. So in other words,
yes,
yes, people, they can come back at the counting.
Yes, at the counting, yes, they are free to come back.
So they will crowd it. 900 people, 1,000 can come back.
Even then, look at it. Even then, because it's their right to come and see how their candidate has performed. But we must be mindful that we are having this election in a COVID environment. Okay? And at all material times, Patrick, at all material times.
What's the point, sir, when you are going to allow them to come back at the counting point, but you don't want them to stay around? Because it's the same thing. They will crowd there.
Yeah, but you see, look, the counting does not take 5 hours. No, it doesn't. But polling takes place about 10 hours. It takes place for about 9 or 10 hours. Okay? Now, are you going to be glued at a polling station for 9 or 10 hours? But we are saying give space to others, because counting, the people who are involved in the counting process are only the polling officials and the agents. But for voting, it is the voters who are coming there at their own pace or their own time to this polling station. So give room for voters, other voters, to come and access the polling station. And do not crowd the polling, especially in urban areas in Kampala. Do not crowd the polling station with your unnecessary presence. I call it unnecessary because your role at that material time, when you have cast your vote, is nil. If you want to know how your candidate has performed, you can come maybe at from 4 p.m. to see how the count is going on. But even then, we are saying be mindful of the SOPs. And therefore, are you socially distanced? Are you well sanitized? Are you keeping yourself free from contracting the virus? Because you never know this person. Whereas, Patrick, look at it this way. Whereas when this voter was coming to the polling station, he was able to get sanitized. Okay? We're able to observe that he's putting on the mask. Now, when they come then when they go away and then return to the polling station, you don't know where they have been. You don't know whom they have been in contact with. And now that material time, it might be a bit difficult for the polling constable to tell people, can you please come to witness the counting in an orderly manner? Do you get it? So that's why we are saying that if you have cast your vote, you know the person whom you have voted for, you know your candidate has competent agents at a polling station who are going to guard his or her vote, who are going to witness the counting, who are going to witness the recording of the results on the declaration of results form, who are going to sign or append their signatures to the DR form, who are going even to pick a copy of the DR form. So why would you want to come and then crowd at this polling station? So candidates...
So you're just making an appeal. But
yes,
you know, I know you're making an appeal and you mean good, but you have seen what we have gone through in the last couple of months. The anger, you know, that is there. The people who are emotionally charged. For those who think that maybe the system is unfair for them, you really think you're going to give them an appeal to stay away, and they stay away? Yeah, because, you know, what has been happening now is showing us that they will come and they will stay.
Look,
so you have to prepare, my lord, how they are going to stay there without causing any controversy, because that is likely to be the case considering what is going on now. And if people are just running around with the police, with the military, some actually people have even died. I wonder how you're going to tell them to stay home.
And you see, that is also the other downside to that matter, of that issue, of people crowding at a polling station. Patrick, as you have rightly said, going by what has been happening in the campaigns now, I want you to imagine if these very fiery supporters observe or notice that the counting is not going the way of their candidate. You get me? And for them, they must win. That's the attitude of some people. We must win. But at this polling station, things are not turning out the way we wanted. What is likely to happen?
I don't know. Which people are saying they must win by all?
You have heard everybody saying we must win this election. You have heard people saying we have already won. We are doing it. You haven't heard them, Patrick?
I just want to hear from the Electoral Commission chairman.
They have had people, but people are making those sentiments. Of course, nobody goes into an election to lose, isn't it? Nobody goes into an election to lose. Everybody goes into an election expecting to win. You get me? Now, the point is, you have this caliber of supporters, okay, who at all costs have want their candidate to win. They want their candidate to win. Now, if they see that things are not going the way of their candidate at that polling station, what is likely to happen? They are likely to either turn around, they are likely to disrupt the process, they are likely to cause chaos and mayhem. And we really don't want, I want to appeal to
so
the
you have
voters.
A contingency plan. You have a contingency plan.
Njagala kubiriza muna abalonzi mwewale ebikolwa oba ebikolobero oba empisa ezinataataganya akalulu ku polling station yonna mu bitundu by'eggwanga. I want to appeal to all voters. Please avoid any act, avoid any conduct that may cause a disruption at any polling station in the country. Because if you do that, then the results of that polling station may never be declared.
Okay, I think that is very tough. And, you know, there have been attacks, for example, on opposition politicians. I've seen just the other day, the Honorable Engineer Patrick Amuriato Boy, who was pepper sprayed with something that almost, you know, blinded him for some hours. And the pictures we saw were not
Ugly.
good, were ugly. I wonder, you as the person in charge of the elections today, what you had to say about that?
Well, of course, some of the scenes we have been seeing happening in the course of these campaigns have been very unfortunate. This is what we did not expect, we do not want to see. But you see, it all boils down, Patrick, to the sense of responsibility each one of us has in ourselves.
Are you saying he was responsible?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying each one of us. Each one of us. Now, it's unfortunate that some of these people, right from the word go, they publicly pronounced to all and sundry that we are going to defy whatever the Electoral Commission is telling us to do in this process. We are going to defy. And that, unfortunately, appeared to set the tone and the stage for occasional and constant confrontations with security agencies, which was most unfortunate. And in our discussions with the candidates, some of the candidates, during this period of campaigns, or their representatives or agents, we have been urging each of the parties to draw back, to respect the guidelines that we have issued, to recognize or to realize that these guidelines were not issued to stifle their candidature or their efforts to reach out to the voters, but to ensure that we have a peaceful, tranquil, orderly process in this COVID pandemic environment. That was all. But you see, some people were ridiculing us, were caricaturing the Electoral Commission, they were calling it names and so on and so forth. So you discuss something, 2 minutes down the road, they're doing the opposite thing. So we can avoid the scenes that we have been witnessing by each one of us be deciding to act responsibly from a personal point of view, and also urging our supporters to act responsibly so that we all have a peaceful process.
Have you had a conversation with the with the military and the police, people
Yes,
who
we
are
do.
following?
We do.
What do you tell them? In the case of pepper spraying the Honorable Muria to that extent,
Ye-
in the case of stopping the Honorable Robert Chagulanyi sometimes not to go to some places, yet it is on schedule and he's supposed to be there, and you have that schedule?
Yes, we have been having regular engagements with them, and we have been pointing out that there are occasions when an individual security officer or commander of that sect or section makes an error of judgment in the response mechanism to a given situation, which gives rise to unfortunate episodes that we have been seeing. And the point we have been pointing out is whether there could be better ways of handling some of these episodes. You get me? But as I said, that it all starts with how do I decide as a candidate to relate, one, to the law or with the law. Secondly, how do I respond to the demands or the requirements on me by law enforcement? It all boils down to that. But if your take is that whatever you say me, I'm going to do it the other way around, then you are setting the stage for these confrontations, which are unnecessary. That is all.
Yeah, but you see, this is an election where already we have had people die in violence.
Very unfortunate, very regrettable.
And you know, when you look back in 2021 election that you chaired, people will also be looking at the journey that is littered with bodies and
Yes.
blood.
And as I've said, as an election manager, that is the last thing I wanted to say. Get me?
Mm-hmm.
Because the spilling of blood
Mm-hmm.
in the course of executing and implementing our democratic processes is not required. It's not a requirement at all. If anything, it is the opposite of a democratic process. And therefore, the take of the Commission and I as an individual is that this is something that we can avoid, that should have been avoided. Should have been avoided by all parties, should have been avoided by
I'm
all
sure
of us.
you had your people in Kalangala, for example, yesterday,
Yes.
when the Honorable Robert Chagulanyi was stopped. His supporters, some of
Yes.
them campaign managers, are incarcerated.
Yes.
He was airlifted from Kalangala
Yes.
and dumped at his home.
Yes.
I wonder whether they have made a complaint to you, or what your officials on the ground were telling you.
Well, I have
what
not
went
yet
wrong.
received an official report, apart from what I saw on the screens. I've not yet had an official report on what prompted that kind of situation that we saw on the screens. And I wouldn't therefore like to comment on something where I do not have all the facts, apart from what I've seen on the screen.
But I thought for every presidential candidate, wherever they are, for heaven's sake, they are presidential candidates, you have your people on the ground and they are giving you information in real time.
No, it's true, but we do not have our staff who are monitoring or who are part of the presidential candidates, should I call it detail or entourage. We do not have personnel or our staff employed as part of the entourage of the presidential candidate, apart from the security we give them. So in that regard, and I'm saying, and I want to emphasize, that we cannot...
Wherever they go, they have somebody from the Electoral Commission at the district level.
Yeah, but
that is your person on the ground.
Yes, no, you see, when the candidate goes to a district, he is not required to report to the returning officer. No. The candidate is required to go to the designated campaign venue.
And the returning officer is not required to monitor what is going on?
They have other things to do. For example, I'm telling you, they are now here. They are now in Kampala for training. Okay? They are in Kampala for training. How will he be able now to go and say, let me go back and monitor what this presidential candidate is doing? You see, Patrick, the most important thing that we have to recognize is that if I'm vying for leadership, I think one of the virtues that I need to be identified for or with is a sense of responsibility and self-discipline to myself and those around me. You get me? If we can exhibit these virtues, I can assure you, then what we are seeing playing out in these campaigns and the entire electoral process can be avoided. But if you want to cut an image or to create a trajectory of being so powerful, of, you know, of doing things the way you believe should project you as indeed a person who has the kind of support that can propel you to where you are going, and you want to exhibit this support for all to see, then in the process you may find yourself confronting the law or going against the law, and therefore being confronted by a law enforcement to put you to order. So that is the point. Because to me, I think if I have any issue with the law, you go to the courts of law just like Omolodi has done. He has gone to the courts of law to challenge the ban by the Electoral Commission on campaign in some areas. That's how leaders should act and conduct themselves.
Justice Simon Byabakama, we are going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is Justice Simon Byabakama, the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission, and we're discussing the readiness of the commission conducting the election in a manner that is fair, that is smooth, and that is credible. We have seen, my lord, religious leaders through the Interreligious Council of Uganda advising that in all fairness, the election should be postponed. I know that is very difficult and can be very unconstitutional, but these men and women of God have already shown you an element of doubt, an element of lack of credibility if you continue with the same. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I do not, of course, I do not speak for the Interreligious Council or the religious leaders, but before I came in here, I was saying that most of their New Year messages were loaded with the call for peace and good conduct, which is very good. Peace and good conduct. I think the concern was that seeing what is going in our midst, maybe I think they were wondering whether we are on the right trajectory and so on. But you see, every good or bad conduct is determined by the choices people make. If the people of Uganda choose to have a peaceful election, we are going to have a peaceful election. If at the same time the choice is the contrary, unfortunately that's what will be. Now all the episodes we are seeing in our midst are propagated by people like you and me. Now, what is it that we want? Do we want a peaceful process? Do we want a stable country? Do we want a process that will ensure that we continue with our normal lives? Because come 14th January, Uganda is not going to wind up with whatever outcome of the election. No. Uganda is going to remain as a country, and the people of this country are going to remain Ugandans. And the activities that we do on a day-to-day basis are going to move on. But all those things can only take place in an environment, in an atmosphere of peace, stability, and tranquility. And I think that's what the religious leaders were calling out for. That can we please have a peaceful, tranquil process. Let us not allow this election to put the country on fire. So on the issue of postponing the elections, of course, as you rightly said, the Constitution as it is from the perspective of the Electoral Commission does not permit us to say we are postponing this election. We cannot do that.
Yeah, but even the framers of the Constitution, whatever they did, even though it's a very good law, the supreme law of the land, did not envision that we are likely to have an existential threat like we are having today, that humanity will be attacked by a pandemic of this nature. So I don't know whether that can be to go around it, but what we are having now is not something they envisioned.
Nobody did, and remember, Uganda is not the only country that is conducting elections in a COVID environment. There are so many countries which have done it. I think it all depends on how the people in those countries have chosen to manage their individual conduct vis-a-vis the need to fight the requirement for us to avoid contracting the virus. But if we are going to be reckless, if we are going to make statements that do not encourage people to be mindful of the dangers of this pandemic, then we are doing a disservice to our people. And as a result, then you have all these...
Does it concern you that the men of God have spoken, who, by the way, are not partisan, and for them, the observation that, look, this is not likely to give us anything good. It's better you postpone. That alone is sort of, you know, is an indictment on you as the Electoral Commission head.
No, I don't think. Is it the Electoral Commission that introduced COVID?
No,
Was it the...
No,
is it
you cannot rain on the people who you are managing the election that is marred and littered by violence. Is
it the Electoral Commission telling people go and defy the SOPs? Is it the Electoral Commission? What is it that the Electoral Commission has done or not done that has led to people to conduct themselves in this manner? What is it? I want someone to point it out and say, for as much as you do not do this, or you did this in this manner, that's what has led people to do this. Now remember, wait a minute, Patrick.
Yes.
From the time we said we are going to have nominations, and these are the guidelines pertaining to how the aspirants, their supporters, are going to get to the nomination venue. What happened? What did some of the aspirants say? To hell with Byabakama and his things. For us, we are going to encourage, to mobilize our supporters. We are going to go to the nomination center in thousands. What is it that the Electoral Commission did that inculcated this kind of thinking into the minds of these aspirants to say, we are not going to abide by what we are saying, we are going to mobilize thousands of our supporters to come to go to the nomination center. So, yes, the Electoral Commission is the sole manager of this process. But what is it that the Electoral Commission has done or not done that leads people not to obey the guidelines, that leads people to disobey the SOPs? What is it that we have done or we have not done? It's a question of choice. If your motives are different from the general good, what do you expect? That's why we have had engagements, discussions with some of these candidates or their agents during the process of the campaigns, pointing out, please, you are not doing things right. This is the evidence. We even played clips and footages on our screen in the boardroom. See, on Saturday at this location, you are not observing the SOPs. You are not following our guidelines. We said no public processions along the roads. Do not address a mass rally. Was that a campaign meeting? Not a mass rally? Now, would you blame that on the Electoral Commission? The conduct, the individual conduct of a candidate who totally defies the guidelines and the SOPs, and then you say, when police comes to confront that person, it is because the Electoral Commission did not do its work, and therefore it is not in charge. Yamma.
Well, I just let you say that with the explicitly, so that maybe the information can be understood.
Thank you.
And now, and for that matter, I'm going to open the line so that those who are listening and watching tonight can be a part of this discussion. Perhaps they have a different idea or a different view or a different experience. And this is the moment when you can engage Justice Simon Byabakama. The numbers are on our screen. You can pick your phone and call us. And please make it very precise so that we can have a number of you participate in this discussion. And you tell us your name, where you're from, and then go right ahead with your question or with your comment. So I'm taking the very first person online. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, Dr. Mwangi Jabura, Karubu Maogola.
You are in Maogola?
Yes, Karubu.
Karuhoko. Okay, go right ahead, sir.
They left undone those things which they ought to have done, and they have done those things which they ought not to have done, and there is no truth in them.
Okay.
I've been following closely Mr. Byabakama
Yes.
since the beginning of this electoral process. He turned himself into a Minister of Health expert in charge of COVID, instead of doing his constitutional mandate of preparing a free and fair election. We don't know what his objectives are. But I want to remind him there is no winner in a sinking boat. Let him mismanage the election. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, our caller from Mawogola. Thank you so much. You used some biblical phrase there. Let me take another caller online. Hello. I have a call online. Hello. Okay, we seem to be having a technical hitch getting some people. You'll see the numbers on the screen. Please pick a phone and call us and make it precise. And should you be having disagreements with Justice Simon Byabakama, I implore you to disagree with respect. That's how we're going to do it here. Yes, hello?
Yeah, this is Godfrey from Bundubujo.
Godfrey in Bundubujo?
Yeah.
Go right ahead, sir, Godfrey.
Yeah, it's very disheartening when we see everyone coming to the Electoral Commission under the guise of being the chairperson mismanaging the elections. It is true that we really regret that all these people, there's literally nothing they are helping us. We have seen where the Electoral Commission is supposed to be intervening in, but the Electoral Commission does not come in. Issues of violence against candidates, opposition candidates are there, but the Electoral Commission just keeps an eye. The Electoral Commission is supposed to be there as a go-between to come and mediate the different parties, but it has not come in. So the Electoral Commission has really not done what we have expected them. And our prayer is that the Electoral Commission this time should try to polish up their image. I pray that Justice Simon Byabakama goes by the title Justice. Let it prevail. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Otherwise, hope in this election. We just think that this election is going to be a selection, not an election.
Thank you so much, our caller from Bundubujo. You've spoken with a lot of clarity about your issues, and Justice Simon Byabakama will be responding to you after taking maybe 2 or more callers online. I have another call online. Hello.
Hello, Patrick. My name is Ben. I'm calling from Chenjojo.
Ben, calling from Chenjojo?
Yes, please. I come to Byabakama. I have actually that after presidential.
Ben, I'm sorry. I apologize. The line is not very clear, so we are unable to hear what you're trying to tell us. And it's unfortunate. I'll have to drop that line because of technical issues. I have to pick another caller online. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening to you.
What's your name and where are you calling from? Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Luero.
Yes, your name, ma'am?
I am Nababel.
Okay, go right ahead. You're on air.
I can go on?
Yes, go on.
I'm calling from...
Yes, go on. Go on. Our caller from Luero. Oh, it's a pity. Again, we seem to have, unfortunately, lost contact with the caller from Luero. I'm going to try just the last caller online, and then Justice Simon Byabakama will respond to you and make his concluding remarks. I have a caller online. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What's your name?
Byabakama and Patrick.
Where are you calling from, and what's your name?
I'm called Kamia. I'm calling from Washington, D.C.
You're in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, we are very disappointed. We are very disappointed. And many Ugandans are Justice Byabakama. You have 95 members of a candidate's team abducted by the police. They abducted doctors, his ambulance, his sound system. And you are saying that this is going to be a fair election? How is he supposed to campaign without with all that support? Justice Byabakama, you are not conducting a fair election in Uganda. Help us. This is our country. Don't push us into temptation.
All right. We're going to end with that caller from Washington, D.C. on the other eastern side of the American seaboard. Thank you so much. And so, yeah, you could respond to
Yeah,
them,
thank
and
you,
then you're
Patrick.
going to make your concluding
I'll
remarks.
start with the issue of my brother in Washington, and I want to start by wishing you a Happy New Year. Now, first of all, a free and fair election is not the preserve of the Electoral Commission alone, because an election is a process of so many things with so many actors. And each of the actors is expected to play their or his or her role. Political parties, the candidates, the supporters, security, civil society, religious leaders, and everybody, every citizen in the country. Each one of us has a role to play in ensuring the process of a free and fair election is achieved or attained. The Electoral Commission being the lead actor, I have said, and I wish I had the time, I would have laid out all the various activities that we have undertaken as Electoral Commission, where we are the main drivers, where we are the key lead actors, and everything has gone on so well. People are focusing right now on what is happening during the campaigns. But campaigns is just one of those so many activities that constitute an electoral cycle. We have been carrying out so many activities from 2019, from the beginning of maybe December 2018, when we launched the roadmap, throughout 2019, from the process of reorganizing, demarcating, polling electoral areas in the entire countryside, reorganizing polling stations in the entire country, updating the voters register in the entire country, displaying the register in the entire country, conducting elections for the special interest groups, the youth, the women, the elderly, the persons with disabilities. All those processes, the key player was the Electoral Commission. You never had the kind of challenges, the kind of issues, violent confrontations, disruptions and so on. We never had those processes. Ask yourself, how come when it comes to campaigns, who are the key actors in a campaign process? Who are the lead players? The lead players in a campaign activity, which is one of the key processes of an election, are the candidates, the supporters, and their conduct or behavioral pattern determines the role and the response of security in a given situation. And therefore, I want to say, the Electoral Commission has done everything within its powers to ensure the people of Uganda get a free and fair election. Mind you, that can only be achieved when all the other key players play their required role in accordance with the law, period. Now, on the issue of my sister Nabagala, the line was not clear. Godfrey from Bundibujo. Issues of violence have been taking place without the EC coming to intervene. We have held meetings with the police, okay? And in some of the meetings we have held with the candidates or their agents, we have invited the police. We have invited the police to be part of these meetings. When Kyagulanyi was arrested in, was it in Luka somewhere? The Electoral Commission took the initiative to engage with the police to establish what was taking place, what was happening. And we were informed he was being subjected to the due processes of the law. Mind you, when we were nominating the presidential candidates, we informed them, being a candidate does not place you above the law. You must at all material times conduct yourselves, you must propagate and project your candidature in accordance with the law and the guidelines issued by the Electoral Commission. That is clear.
All right,
so it's not true that we have not been intervening in acts of violence or acts that we think are causing a distortion of what has otherwise been a very well organized process. Now, on the issue of Minister of Health expert, Mr. Dr. Muwonge, I'm not competent to qualify or to pass off as an expert in health matters, more so in the fight against COVID-19. I have said, and I repeat, that in this pandemic, which is very unprecedented, and given that elections by their nature are crowd pullers, crowd gatherers, we had to consult Minister of Health experts to
Okay.
establish the best way we can address these challenges.
And briefly, your parting shot.
A parting shot, ladies and gentlemen, we have less than 1 hour to cross from 2020 to 2021. 2020 has had its own challenges, majorly presented by COVID-19. I want to thank God for having brought us this far. Our condolences to all those who have lost their dear ones to this pandemic and other causes. Let 2021 be a year of renewed hope, renewed determination for us to champion a better cause, more so as we head to polling on 14th January and thereafter. I want to appeal to the people of Uganda to remain calm, to work for peace, to work for stability, because that is the bedrock of everything that we want to do and we want to be. God bless you. Happy New Year, people of Uganda.
Thank you so much, Justice Simon Yabakama, for having honored our invitation. We thank you for the time and we appreciate your insights. Now, 2020 has been a year like no other. We faced an existential threat and we still do. We have suffered together, struggled together, and even cried together. We have gone through tough times, Uganda, as a country. The missed wedding opportunities or ceremonies, the missed kwanjula or birthday party, and the missed opportunities, but most of all, that empty seat for the departed. Amidst all these, I've been able to see the indomitable Ugandan spirit of Ubuntu. People sharing the little they have to save a starving neighbor or drop a sick person to hospital. You became your brother's keeper, your sister's keeper. If there's anything, Uganda, I have learned in this pandemic is that we are really the same. COVID-19 is a great equalizer. Rich or poor, connected or not, we are all vulnerable or in perpetual vulnerability. I know we can lift ourselves from the depth of despair. While our journey this far has been hard and painful, we shall pick up ourselves now. The campaigns are in the final stretch. We have seen anger, people emotionally charged. I have believed that's because you love this country so deeply and so dearly, and you want the best for its future. Unfortunately, sometimes periphery things have become serious and serious ones have disappeared. We are a Ugandan family. We shall rise together or fall together. But for God's sake, let us choose to rise together. Let us choose to be brother's keeper or sister's keeper. Happy New Year, Uganda. Good night.